everyone to our Feed Your Mind webinar series. This project is part of the Greater Phoenix Age Friendly Network, which is funded by the Pfizer Foundation, Gritmakers in Aging, and our very own local Virginia G. Piper Charitable Trust. We're thrilled to have you join us today. Just a few logistics before we go ahead and get started. If you'd like to ask a question, please do so at any time. Please use the chat room function located at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Also, if you have any questions, any technical assistance, and we're not able to address that through the chat function for any reason, please do feel free to call the MAG main line at 602-254-6300. Be sure to visit www.connect60plus.com for more information about this webinar series, as well as the rest of our work, which is growing throughout the region. So we hope to work with all of you, to partner with you, and to continue to meet with you each Friday at the first Friday of each month at noon. Our topic next month will be on the psychology of investing and trading with Dr. Janice Dorn. She will be joining us on June 6th. So please be sure to register and join us for that great webinar as well. And now I would like to introduce our guest today. This is Gene Jones Jr. He is an executive chef. He has owned several restaurants, both here as well as abroad, and he is one of our champions on connect60plus.com. He will be speaking to you today about his personal perspective as an executive chef and a savvy shopper and an eater of food himself, and talking about eating in the 21st century. So please help me welcome Gene Jones Jr. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. Thank you very much, Amy, and I'd like to welcome everyone. Today's topic, let me cue up my machine here for a minute, is about eating in the 21st century. I'm not sure how many people have followed the blogs that I've been putting out. What I have been basically trying to do is to alert people to the volumes of food that we have today, why we have those volumes, and some of the setbacks that you might want to be aware of. The first thing I would like to talk about is the purchasing of food. It's standard procedure in most markets. You have your aisles, and then you also have your perimeter shopping, which for myself as a chef, I find this to be more appealing. And when I say more appealing, I mean more healthy-wise. In other words, especially if you are on a limited budget, you will find that perimeter shopping can be far cheaper than the aisle shopping. And the first thing about aisles is that in most supermarkets you will go into, there's going to be 3 aisles that you can walk down, that if you are aware of what's going on in those aisles, that food can sit on those shelves for 2 years. And when I say 2 years, that's because it's canned. And 90% of the time it's sodiumized, and there's preservatives there so that those foods can stay in the can. For anyone with a health problem, a high blood pressure problem, or put it this way, let me be a little broader here. Anyone with any type of eating disorder, you want to stay out of those aisles. You want to go, and the aisles are for fast foods. It's for people who may lack culinary skills, and most people lack culinary skills. When I went to culinary college, the reality is they don't teach you how to be a chef. What they do is they teach you the basics of cooking, the principles of cooking. You have to have a passion for cooking to develop and to become a chef. And you see this a lot in a lot of restaurants today, that people go to culinary school, they come out, they start working, and the owners expect them to know certain things, and they don't, because in school what it is, they teach you the principles. You have to go, and like any profession, you have to put in your groundwork and learn from the bottom up. I did it several times, started out at the bottom, worked my way from a prep chef up to a sous chef, up to an executive chef. So if you don't have culinary skills, don't feel bad, but what you can do is that the principles of cooking are very simple today, especially because we have the internet. And I would advise anybody with a cell phone or with a computer, when in doubt, go to the internet, because there's an abundance of information, and it's not necessarily the famous executive chefs out there. There are some very good, like All Recipes, some .com companies that put out some beautiful recipes for food. And something that I found to be the best is that when you look at a menu, or when you look at a recipe, it has a limited amount of products and a limited amount of steps. Most of the time, those are the best recipes. I had the good fortune to live in Italy for 2 years and to learn a great deal about cooking. And one of the things I've admired about Italian foods is that less is better. And the reason less is better in Italy is because of the quality is so great. They don't have the massive farms like we have here in America, and this is actually good for the Italian economy because you get fresh products. You, I can remember shopping daily. I used to go. Refrigerators were like college dorm refrigerators, and this was years ago. And I'm pretty sure they have the big, huge refrigerators like we have today. But I went shopping every day. I bought daily food. I bought daily vegetables, and consequently, what it is, it has a great deal to do with the quantity and size of food that you eat. So this is something that we should think about here in America because I know one of the biggest problems today is that it's the size and quantity of foods that we eat. For those out there who are dealing with weight issues, um, one of the first things that I would tell you is that to relate an experience that I had when I first came back. I lived 12 years in Europe, and when I came back to America, one of the first things I did, I remember going out to dinner, and I went to a very nice restaurant, and they set this plate of food down in front of me, and I thought it was a serving for five, because I had come from a society where uh, they really concentrate on volume. Uh, eat, they eat more times a day. Europeans eat more times a day than Americans, but they eat smaller portions. And if you look at most of your diets, when you see these diets that they're selling on TV and so forth, the big thing that they're doing there, which is good, is that they are concentrating on people eating smaller meals more times a day. And for me, being a very greedy person, I love to eat. That's very hard to do because in my mind, I know I should be eating smaller, but I still eat large meals. But I'm getting better, and I want to tell people out there that it can be done. It's a will. One of the things that I've written in one of my blogs is that sometimes you have to count things as mental victories. And one of the things for myself in maintaining weight and dealing with a lot of people that are overweight that call in and talk to me about what they should be doing, my first thing that I tell them is consumption. That is the biggest part, and the hardest part of consumption is the mentality. Um, People don't realize that when you're sitting down at a table and you get full while you're eating, you're way past full. That's the part that puts you to sleep. So I try to tell people to say, look at your portions. If you want to talk about, I'll give you a scenario that I've extended to my family members. We eat a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Most Americans eat a pound of food at each setting. That's 16 ounces. That's a pound of food. That's 3 times a day, 7 times a week. So that's 21 pounds in 1 week. Okay, times four. So now you're looking at why your exercise routine is not working when you're out there working at the gym all day because the amount of food that you are consuming, if you would talk to your personal trainer and say, okay, if I'm consuming this many calories, how much do I have to work out? You'll find that you don't have time to work. You'll spend your whole life working out because the fact that we do have to work and we only have so much time to work out ourselves, physical workout in the gym or running or playing basketball or football or playing tennis or skiing, then you only have X amount of time to work out. What a solution to that could be, and I told one of my block friends that called in was that, okay, take the amount of time that you have to work out and say, okay, if I'm only working out 45 minutes or a half hour, because there's some things out there that says I lost weight just by walking a half hour a day. Okay, that's fine. That's legit. For me, it would be better if they said I worked out a half hour a day and I watched my consumption, and then all of a sudden everything makes sense to it makes sense to me. So what I try to tell people is that suppose you don't have a half hour to work out. Suppose you only have 15 minutes to work out. Okay, count how many calories you would burn in a 15 or 20-minute workout. Okay, compare that against what you're eating. This will give you an idea of how much food you should be consuming a day. You know, it'll be shocking to people how much food they actually eat. But I advise people say just take a pen and piece of paper, and when you sit down and eat, say, okay, I had this for breakfast. I had 2 eggs. I had potatoes. I had bacon. I had sausage. I had butter, I had toast, I had orange juice, milk, because everything that you put in your body has a calorie to it. And when you add that up, it'll tell you how much you have to work out. And like I said, the mental victory is what I advise people to go after first. Go after that first mental victory. Not so much in losing weight, but just in controlling how much food you consume a day. And that's the first step. Um, I've been told in my life that in the journey of 1,000 miles, the first step is the hardest. And so when you put that in perspective toward losing weight, the first step is not going on a diet. The first step is not exercising. The first step is having the mentality to say, okay, I need to consume less. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, when I go to this diet, and I don't really like to use that word diet, I try to tell people you have to change the way that you eat, because if not, what you're going to do is you'll lose weight. But then, as soon as you get down to where you want and you go back to your eating habits, you'll be set up for the next new diet coming out. So for those people that really want to lose weight and to stay where they want to be comfortably, and I'm not into this emaciated look. I like women to have some size to them, to have some curves and stuff like that, but not big curves. So I'm not going to put down anybody that says, okay, I'm happy with my body. If you're happy with your body, so be it. But I still think that you have to sit there and say, do I have high blood pressure? Do I have diabetes? Is this caused through? Do my knees ache? Do my ankles hurt? Because most people, they carry too much weight on their body, and that's the number one source of their aches and pains. Is that when you have a body that's supposed to, let's say you're 5'10", and you weigh 180 pounds. I think at 5'10", you're supposed to be carrying 160 pounds. That's what your bone structure, your bone density says. And this is some of the things that some of these diet people should be telling you, so that that's a moral victory. That's a mental victory for you. If you look at that and say, okay, I just want to be pain free for a while. Okay, well, look at your structure. You know your structure. You have to face yourself by yourself every day at some point in time. So you know your structure. These are some of the ways that you can get the mental victories, and those mental victories are the first and most important victories. And once you start building on those, you will find that changing your way of eating is very, very simple. Because you'll be without pain, and not unless you like pain, But most people, once you lose that pain from carrying around excess pounds, you never want to return. And it's easy. It's very easy to maintain your weight. It's very easy to maintain the volume of food that you eat. It's very easy to maintain how much food you consume a day and what types of food you can take. Okay. My next subject is I would like to talk about genetically modified foods. Again, I think that it's important for everyone who consumes food to look and see what you are consuming, because it is not what it used to be. Myself, I'm 65. I can remember in New Jersey, I can remember beefsteak tomatoes that, well, and it was probably because I was a kid, but they were as big as your hand. But the one thing that I know is that I can remember the smell, I can remember the bouquet, I can remember the flavor and the taste and how they looked. And when I look at tomatoes today, and it's, as a chef, it's really hard because I use very little cans. Most sauces I make, I use fresh tomatoes. I go through the process only because, from what I know, from what I've learned from farmers that I've spoken to, from private farmers that I've gone out and seen the gardens, there are three things that I know commercial farms have to do. They have to put a herbicide, they have to put a pesticide and a fungicide on there. The FDA demands you do this. And so that's three chemicals right there. And when you look at these chemicals, I often tell people you have to be aware of technology today. Every time they go to the moon, they come back with something new. And they take that technology and they hand it down to we, the consumers. The other day, I used an item that I never thought would exist, but I used it. I grilled some food. It came out perfect. It lost its heat instantly. It didn't burn, and I was surprised. But it worked great. But then I'm saying, okay, that's good. That's a good thing. But what are the consequences of those good things? And when you look at the massive farms we have out here in society today, whereas at one of my blogs I spoke about What happened to the institution of farming as a career? There's so many big farms, and I'm not against industry, and I'm not against somebody going out there and doing the best thing that they can do and actually winning. But what I am against is that um, you have to have room for everybody to be involved so that we do have volume. We have an enormous volume, but it's all the same thing. It's hard to find an ear of corn today that is healthy. Most ears of corn are genetically modified because they grow corn on such a large scale that this is the process that the government's come down and said we must do these things. And in reality, they are out to protect us. But what I think we should go an actual another step and say this is what we're doing while we're protecting you because this is the harm. We have people, if you look at what you're eating per day and look at it on a technological basis, say, okay, I'm eating carrots, I'm eating broccoli, I'm eating corn, I'm eating rice, pasta. Okay, look at the chemicals involved in that. And when you look at those chemicals, you are consuming those because they don't wash off. Yeah. Most vegetables I eat, most fruits I eat, I peel the skin because that's where the chemicals lay. Uh, every tomato I eat, I peel. I, I just do it. I've been doing it for years, just because I know what a Jersey tomato tasted like, and I know what it tastes like now. So, but what the whole purpose of the government and the FDA telling us that this is what has to be done, they usually have very good reasons why they're doing it. But we as consumers, I think, have to be aware of what those good things are doing for us and how we counteract those things. So I do a lot of blanching of vegetables. I do steaming of vegetables, but I find blanching seems to take a little more of the chemicals. You can look at the actual water in your pots when you blanch vegetables and see you'll see a residue on top because it's coming off. So my advice to people is to be aware of what you're eating, be aware of where it comes from, be aware of the process of how that food is brought to you because now everything is year round. There was a time I'm a seasonal cook. I like to, in my last restaurant, we did seasonal cooking. We would have a dish and we made sure that we told the customers that when this dish, the sides on this dish is prepared, we've changed it because the season is prepared. When you buy out of season things, it could possibly come from coming a great distance. With technology today, with transportation, shipping, they pick a lot of fruit and vegetables early so that they can handle that ride across country, so that it can be brought to you non-seasonal. So when you get it, you are getting the vegetable, but you're not getting the vegetable that should have stayed on the vine as long as it should have stayed. And this is why when you look at it, you say, oh, it doesn't taste the same. So how the food industry counteracts that is they turn around and they say, well, here is a seasoning. Here is a sauce you can put on in a little packet. Sprinkle this on your so and so. That is another chemical. So when you sit down and wonder why you don't feel well after a meal, this could be some of the reasons. Don't take it all on yourself as if something's wrong with you. You have to look at what you are consuming. Okay? I'm not here to frighten anybody because it can be a daunting thing. It's very hard for me personally to eat and not get bored with eating because you go out there and say, oh, okay, I can't eat that. I don't want to. Not you can't. I don't ever want to say that you can't. I'm saying I don't want to, so that anybody out there has a choice of saying, okay, I'm going to take a chance. I'll eat this. I'll eat that. But I have a difficult time saying, okay, if I prep out a week's worth of meals, okay, what am I going to have? Because most of the time I have something twice a week because the limitations that I have, and again, being a chef, it is my responsibility. I think when I cook food for people, to they have an expectation of a certain quality when they come to me, and I have a responsibility to do that, or else you shouldn't do it. So just like in anybody else, every field has a responsibility to the public that the public comes to them for a service, and it's the same thing in the food industry. And this is the difficulty today with the food industry is that many people, it's become a tremendous business. It's become a very, how does one say, it's profitable business very profitable today. There's a lot of chain restaurants out there today that are putting out foods that are technically based, and if the public, I don't mind the public, I don't mind people doing that as long as they tell you that what it is. It's when they don't tell you. um, there was an incident about some chemical being put in bread that was brought out to the public a couple of months ago. The same situation. It's okay. You have the right to go ahead and do that. You have a right to create, but I still think that we as consumers have a responsibility to tell the public what they're consuming. Just as myself as a chef, when I make something for somebody, I can tell them everything that's in there, no matter what. And I don't have to remember it because I know what goes in it and what should be in it. It's when you start putting things in there that's not, that's secret, that you might run into a few problems. And I've been to a few restaurants where this is going on. So, again, just be aware of what you're eating, where it comes from, be aware of the quantities that you're eating. I would tell people, say, I know it's difficult because I love steak. For somebody to say, well, here's a 4 or 5 ounce steak, I say, well, that's a starter for me. I like a minimum of 12 ounce, and if you're going to eat on that basis, then if I have a 12-ounce steak, then I only have 4 more ounces left to I have a pound, because 16 ounces is a pound. So you do 2 ounces of starch, 2 ounces of veg. So now you see why they break it down and say you should have 4 ounces of protein, 4 ounces of starch, 4 ounces of this, and then you have some room for dessert. Um, it's again, each individual person, each consumption is down to the size of that person. One size does not fit all in the food industry. I think you saw that the contest where I think they called it the Biggest Loser, where the girl went and she worked out and she got to a certain weight, and then she made people afraid for her because they saw her losing more weight, and then now she's going in reverse. So you can see from that example that everybody has their own individual idea of what makes them look good. You know, if you feel good the way you look, be happy with that. Don't criticize somebody else for what they think. But first of all, before you criticize somebody, you have to first use yourself as an example. So when I talk to people about food, it's really hard for me to say you should only eat this, because, like I said, I love food. That's why that's why I'm a chef. I love the best thing about being a chef. You get to eat first. I think that was the thing that motivated me to get into the kitchen. You eat first. But it's in today's market, in today's culture, in today's society, in the climate. I think we have to be aware of the growing processes that are used and the technical advice that's given out. And if you, like I say, if you have a computer or a cell phone, don't hesitate to go in there to find out, or call somebody and ask somebody. Call up a chef friend that you know. We have blogs here at it's Connect 60 Plus, and especially for people our age that are retiring, it's when it's like you bump your shoulder at my age, it doesn't recover that fast. And it's the same thing with food. When you eat something bad, you don't recover that fast. So, unlike youth, you see them, they eat, just eat and eat. And eat. We can't do that. So we as senior citizens, we have to be more aware of what we consume, how it's cooked, what's involved in it, um, the genetically modified organisms that are out there today, um, how many chemicals you are consuming per day will tell you a lot about your health. Okay? Um, I'm not there. I think I've talked for quite a bit here. If we can open it up for chats if you have any questions. If not, I have a couple more subjects to go to. Let me see right here. Oh, see, now I have a new computer. If you don't get to it, that's it cuts off. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm back. Let me see here. Okay, one of the things I wanted to deal with is advertising, and how this affects our appetites. Um, One of the things that I believe that we as a society, we do not give enough credit to the big screen in the house, or to the computer screen, or to the telephone screen. My observation has been, when people, especially kids, when they see it on TV, there is an assumption that it's okay. And this is one of our biggest problems that I see today when I talk to clients, when I talk to relatives, when I talk to friends. about the obesity in our youth. I think there's a couple sports programs out they have now. I've seen advertised 60 minutes a day. Get your child to spend 60 minutes a day. When I was a kid, you couldn't keep me in the house. Matter of fact, I used to get called in and say, okay, we can't see you. It's too dark. You got to come in. You know? So we tried to stay out all day. We got up in the morning. We went out. We had that social culture where kids played together at the playground, in the parks, in the streets. No matter where you lived at in a town, kids gathered. Whereas now kids have, I've seen it, and again, what I'm saying to you today is just strictly my opinion. Okay, it's the things that I have observed. But I see kids, they're highly influenced by the entertainment industry. And then I see the entertainment industry combined with the food industry to make it so that this is happening. And every child wants to be happening. And that's the key that they've learned throughout. I've been a musician for many years. And I know records are geared to the record buying public, which are kids. Yeah? And you see now that I can remember a time when food was advertised just verbally. Now every food is advertised with the song. You know, kids remember the song, they remember the food. So for parents out there with young kids, I think one of the most important things for you to do is to make sure to see what effects that the advertisement is having on your kids, because it's making up, for me, I feel like it's making up the kid's mind instead of the kid making up their own mind. And that's one of the big things that I can remember in school that we were taught, because we used to have nutrition breaks, and before those nutrition breaks, they would kind of tell you what was there today. We had apple machines in the school where you got crisp apples. There weren't so many potato chips and Doritos and corn tortilla chips and stuff like that. So today, I think kids are more oriented toward music and entertainment, kind of dictating to them what they should be eating, and this is really hard for a lot of parents, because you are fighting. You get out there, you tell your kids, you buy, you shop, and so forth, but the kids are being bombarded for all the hours that they're away from you. So what I try to tell people, and this is a good thing for people who are changing their way of eating, the very first thing you want to do is that, for me, how I changed my way of eating, I made sure that when I did get hungry and I went to that refrigerator, everything in there was good for me. Yeah. And that was the first step, because I've been to people's homes and you go into to a closet, you open up the shelves, and it's doomsday in there. No matter what you have, but they have great intentions, but they don't have the right approach to it. So my thing is, you're not going to be able to watch your kids 24 hours a day. You're not going to be, because you're going to be at work, they're going to be out playing. But when they do come home, which is their sanctuary, this is their safety point, that you make sure that what you have in that refrigerator, what you have in your pantry, what you have in your closets is good for them. And that'll be the first step. That's another mental victory. Because you're able to go out there and say, okay, as a parent, I'm going to shop and I'm going to buy what I think is good for them. Now, if they don't eat it, that's understandable. You don't want to waste money, especially with the financial and economical situations out there today. But most kids, and I've taught adults to cook. I really enjoy teaching kids, because they don't question you. You say do this, they just do it. You say eat this, they just eat it. When you go to adults, do this, why? So it's you'll find that if you set an example, and especially with food for kids, and you show them what is good, and it has to do with first impressions, because I can remember my mother, she used to tell my father, at least my older sister told me this, my mother would tell my father, don't say ugh. Because as soon as he said ugh, we said ugh, I'm not eating it. So, it's kids learn right there at the table. So if you set that example and say, okay, look, well, instead of having this, the thing that you can pop in the microwave, and I'm not against, I don't use microwaves, by the way, but I'm not against them. Instead of having that, say, look, and it's not healthy food. Stay away from that word healthy, because kids hate healthy. They like good. When you say healthy, ugh, I don't want to eat it. I've made things for kids that are totally healthy. I have to say, this is really good. Check it out. Without using that word healthy, and they've all consumed it. But every time I've used the word, well, today we're going to work on some healthy snacks. Oh man, and it's just kids. So be aware of those things as parents, be aware of those things as shoppers, and for again, for our retirement community, the same thing goes. We kind of reverse, I guess, as you get older. We go back, we get our childlike. Um, how does one say this without insulting our aged ones? We revert, so we become more childlike. We get more particular. We get more. We're set in our ways, like kids. We're more flexible when we're in our 30s and 40s. But once you get 60 years old, I kind of got my mind made up on what I like, what I want to do, and so forth. So that's a very difficult thing to face, to deal with. If you husband and wife, husband is never like this, but now it's time for him to start consuming some of this. There's a challenge to how do you go about making that person see it in a different light? So again, computer wise, all of that information is out there. There are a lot of good, and this is the thing that I found out about the internet, that you can self teach yourself today. Most anything by going to that internet. It's you have to be careful, like with anything. There's going to be good and bad out there, so you have to use your own intelligence. And cooking it's a very simple art. It's the restaurant business. I tell people when I've heard people tell me, oh man, risky business, high risk, high risk. I say, well, I found this out, that when I owned a restaurant, when somebody walked in the door, they were either hungry or thirsty, and I had both. It wasn't hard. What it is that between that door and that first table, it's like 1,000 yards, because of all of the mental things that we built up, all of the egos that we have. I'm not a foo-foo cooker. I don't like 9-syllable meals. That's just me. But I know people who love that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you're still dealing with a protein, whether it's a fish, chicken, beef, pork, lamb. It's still a protein. A vegetable, whether it has an exotic name to it, it is still a vegetable. Starches, all of this. So when I tell people about cooking and about planning a meal, a lot of my planning goes in with how do you match up things that are good for you, that are good to eat. One of the programs that I've been working on for the past couple of years is what you should eat together, because what I found out that a lot of the people um, who have weight problems is they don't know that there's fast foods and there's slow foods. And by fast foods, I'm not talking about going out and getting a hot dog or a hamburger or a sub machine or a hoagie or something like that. I'm talking about digestible foods. When a lot of people they say, oh man, I ate and I have indigestion. I say, well, what that is you ate a slow food first, and then you ate a fast food second, and that's that fast food trying to get by the first food in your body, and that's why you feel bad, because things when you eat, you are nourishing your body. There's a process there. Every organ that you have in your body has a purpose. You eat food, it distributes it, it tells it where to go, it breaks it down. Your immune system, your blood cells, your liver, your kidneys, everything. We are a very delicate instrument, and if you start thinking of yourself as a delicate instrument, you'll find that some of these roughhouse foods that you put in your body, that's why your body is not working as well as it should. So you can go online and find fast foods. Okay, what foods digest fast? Yeah, like I always see them have fruit at the end of a meal. I eat fruit at the beginning. It breaks down faster. So why would I eat fruit at the end of the meal when I want to eat things and expel it as fast as possible, and then take the things that digest slowly, because those are the things that you burn. That's your energy for the day. This is what makes you work. When you see people come back from lunch and they fall asleep at like 2:30, a lot of slow foods. So how you eat and what you eat is very important. The order in which you eat them. You can go online. In my next blog, I will find one of the what is the word I'm looking for? When you go to it's a .com. I can't think. I'm blanking out on it right now. One of the websites you go to, and they'll tell you about what are fast digesting foods. If you have a personal trainer, most personal trainers should know this information. That's one of the things they study as personal trainers. What are your fast digesting foods? what foods you can load up on when you're going to have a big day and you burn those off. Like I eat carbs. I'm not a. I love rice. I love pasta. I love potatoes. But what I don't do is I don't eat those after 5 o'clock. I eat those 11 o'clock to maybe 4 o'clock, and then I'm burning that up as I'm using up the rest of my day. Even thinking, when you think, you're burning energy. But after 5 o'clock, a couple glasses of wine, a margarita here, eat something, chill out, relax with your friends. You aren't doing a whole bunch, especially at my age. Yeah, so this is a very important thing to address. You can eat carbs. That thing of not eating carbs, what happens is if you don't eat carbs, a simple explanation. If your body is not supplied with carbs, then your body starts eating your fat. That's why you lose weight. But is that the right way? It's very hard to do that for me. So I say, okay, well, I'm going to have some carbs because I love carbs, but I'm going to, again, limit the amount of carbs I have and what time of day I eat those carbs. Okay, I see we have a question here. It said, where can I find organic foods and good quick recipes? Okay, there are several. My thing right now is to support small farmers. Um, I think that if no matter where you live at now, if you just Google, say, okay, I need a farmer in my area. Now, when I say area, it could be 10 miles. But right now, we all travel. I travel 3 miles to the supermarket. I'll travel 2 more miles to go to a fresh farmer where I can sit there and pick. There are several movable, I think they call them movable feasts, where the farmers go. You can pay X amount of money. You can go in there and pick out 60 pounds of whatever you want. Yeah. If some advertising company would get out there and jump on that, that would alter the course of people eating. Now, I'm not against the supermarkets, but the question is, where can we find organic? And in many restaurants, that organic label is not real. It's bandied about. I can remember a certain chain where I used to go there strictly for their organic foods, but they become so large, they become corporate. Now they have to function like a corporation. They have not found out how to keep supplying that organic foods at a price that I can afford it, that maybe you can afford it. Uh, so what they do is they switch. They keep their name that they came famous for, but they're no longer that healthy food that you went to get. And if you're looking for good quick recipes, that answer right there, good quick recipes, go online. Google good quick recipes for whatever you want. But here's my solution. When I look, a recipe is just someone's interpretation. Okay, and this is the hardest thing I have telling people when I give cooking classes. They get there, they say, "Oh, I can't follow this recipe." I said, "Neither can I." I mean, one of the things my mother told me, she says, one of the hardest things to do is to follow a recipe because your inherent curiosity, your inherent like for something makes you want to do something more. Now, when I can take a recipe I can have 4 people, and I've done it at cooking classes, 4 people, and I get 4 people the same recipe, and it has 4 different tastes because we, as humans, we have an inherent inquisitive nature. When I'm not a baker, because when you bake, it's a science, but some of the best chefs I know started out being bakers because they are so accurate. And when they say yeast, like when you bake, it's the temperature of the water, it's the temperature of the flour, it's the temperature of the room. It's science. I'm one of those cooks. I like to get there and say, okay, today I like a little more green pepper. But when that's my personal cooking. Now, when I cook for a facility, when I cook for an organization, I just did a catering gig for the federal administration yesterday. You have to be aware. You're not cooking for yourself. You're cooking for people. So you can't go in there and say, "Well, I like to put hot peppers in this." Well, if you put hot peppers in it, you have to tell people because some people could be very allergic to hot peppers. So what I do, I go back to what they taught me in school. They teach you the principles of cooking. So when I go back and I'm cooking for the masses, when I'm cooking for a catering job, I'll make it and I'll tell people, look, I would rather you add the amount of salt you want instead of me putting the salt in there. Now, a lot of people say, well, if you don't put salt in food, well, it's not going to be flavorful, and that's the first misconception because I lived in a society where they use very little salt, but what it is the quality of the products they were using. It's so great that it creates flavor. Many people today I see don't they? Well, let me go back to kids and use this example. I worked with some kids back east in Baltimore, and I found out they were coming to my restaurant doing internships, and a lot of kids don't know that a carrot is sweet. They don't know it. They don't know. They don't know that when they taste a green pepper or when they taste cauliflower, what it's supposed to taste like. One of the things I learned from my mother, she used to say, well, first make it like it should be, and then make it like you wanna. And then you can make up your mind. You can it'll show you the difference because I've seen recipes. I sit there and when I cook, I usually make up a recipe from 3 or 4 recipes. I look at that and say, well, that sounds good. I like that, but I don't like that. I like this, don't like that. And then I sit back and say, okay, this is my recipe for this. And I don't think you can copyright a recipe. I've never seen it, but most recipes out there, when you look at all the famous chefs, one of the reasons they're famous is because they're great thinkers, they're artistic, they have a great memory, and they'll go back there and say, "Boy, I can remember doing this, and that tasted great. I'm going to incorporate that into this right now." And the fortunate thing about us today in society is there are no rules in cooking anymore. The rules are out the window. you you can do. I mean, I've seen some food advertised. I say, I'm not going to eat that. I know, I know what you're doing. I'm not eating that because I come from a classical background in food. But in today's, you've seen some of the new restaurants opening up, some of the things that they're doing, some of the combinations that they're putting together. Um, there are no rules. So I would say to all the listeners out there, first of all, think of balance. This is the thing that makes food taste good. I think when people compliment my food that I cook, they say, how did you get that to taste like that? And the first thing I tell them is to say it's balance. You taste many things in there instead of tasting one thing. I didn't cook this for you to taste one thing. I cooked it for you to taste many things. It's like in my restaurants, I tell the chefs or line cooks, I say, seafood. Seafood. This is the thing for seafood. You should taste first of all the sea because it comes from the sea. That's a given. Second of all, you should taste what type of fish you're eating because just like all the other proteins, each fish has its individual signature taste. And then you should taste the seasoning. And when I say seasoning, seasoning should not overpower something. I mean, I've eaten things, people, oh, gee, taste this. And I taste it and I say, well, what is it? I can taste the seasoning in it, but what am I eating? Because it's not balanced. So when you're creating a meal, when you're cooking for yourself, when you're cooking for a loved one, for your kids know balance better than anybody. The kids tell you the truth. How you like this? Ugh. And in front of a lot of people. So yeah, they're good springboard for testing out your food. So think of balance when you cook. It's how you want things to taste. I always compare it to wines. Like when you drink red wine, sometimes they call them tannins. I think when you get that oaky taste, then you get the light crisp taste. Well, use the same thing for your foods. How do you want this to taste? Do you want it to be? Do you want to be heavy? Do you want it to be? Do you want it to be light? Do you want it to be mellow? All of those things go into making a dish. So if when you start to make a dish, you say, "Oh, I would like to have this tonight," whatever it is. Think about how you want that dish to come out. How do you want to? Oh, I just saw another question come up here. It says, "Oh, that's a question for the other people, not me." Sorry. But think about the balance in cooking, about how much you put into something. And a key thing that I can tell everyone out there, even novice cooks, the first thing I tell people in my cooking classes is that, and this I learned this from my mentor, a guy named Rudy Carson, Chef Rudy Carson. He was at Baltimore International. I learned so many things from him. It's been years now, but I'll run into something I say, and it'll make you think. And I said, oh, he mentioned that 15 years ago, and it's true because. And one of the things that he taught me was he said, you can always add, you can't take away. So when I see people cooking, and there's an expression in the kitchen, it's called mise en place, which means everything in its place. And by that they mean like when I cook, I prep everything out. And when you look at the famous cooking shows, the hard part of cooking is prep. Cooking is really easy. It's prepping everything, getting the right quantities. Some recipes they'll say a quarter teaspoon of this, a quarter teaspoon of that, an eighth of a teaspoon of this, because they're creating a balance. And when you, as a cook, as a chef, as a novice cook, as just as a eater of food, you look at that recipe, follow it first, so you can see it. Then you're able to, in your mind, say, okay, I think I want a little more basil in it. I like this, so I want a little more cumin in that. But again, even when you cook, I tell people, I say, this is how I cook. I put in the onions, I put in a little garlic, and then I say, well, I'm not going to put all of this garlic in. And because it's already prepped, I can add it if I want to. But if once you put it in there, you can't take it out. So I always tell people the standard, the first rule in the kitchen is you can always add and you can't take away. So if you use that procedure on anything that you do, even in your life, you can always add. You can't take away. So why put everything in there when you may not need it? Especially money. You don't have to spend it all. So if a little, you may not need it. You may need it down the road. So, but that creates what you can create for people. That mindset. When you see people, they'll say, "Oh, I like that, but I didn't like this, and I didn't like that." All they're telling you is the balance of the meal. I see we have a question here. It says, "Where can we find your blog?" I'm on Connect 60, Craig. I'm on Connect 60 Plus. If you go to if you Google Connect 60 Plus, and then when the page opens up, there's champions, and click on champions, and there's champions on there. Matter of fact, Dr. Dorn, Janice Dorn, is here next month. Fabulous mind. She'll scare you a bit because she's so honest, but fabulous mind. But that's where you find the champions. And we encourage other people to come out. If you have knowledge that you want to pass on, contact Amy St. Peter here at Maricopa County Association of Governments and talk to her, because the whole idea of this blog, Connect 60 Plus, is for people like ourselves. We're not out there buying records and stuff like that. We're a little more concerned with bills and our health, and Medicare. So we're out here doing this thing. But Connect 60 Plus is a organization. It's a web page for people to communicate with one another. If you have knowledge that you want to share, please call Amy St. Peter at the Maricopa County Association of Governments and talk about getting on as champions, because we can always use more champions. I'm pretty sure. It's not closed. And more chefs, more chefs. Again, I'm giving you my experiences. I've had a tremendous amount of fortune in my life to meet some very good chefs, people that are not famous, but when you eat their food, you can't stop. For me, that's a good chef when you eat it. I do a great deal of Cajun Creole foods. I was introduced to this food down in the south of France. I've gone back and forth from New Orleans several times. I go there just to eat. You go to New Orleans, you're gonna have fun anyway. But I go there to sample, and it's one of those things where I go there and I use my principle of how much food I consume. So I say, okay, well, don't go here and pick out at this place here, because you want to go to 3 or 4 places today. So I eat a little bit there, and I go to the next place, eat a little bit more, and a little bit more. So you see that process of consumption even plays into life. So think about that. And Greg, like I say, jump on the blog and tell your friends about it. Okay. I have one more subject I would like to talk about, and that is cooking in itself. I would, if I could get across a point to everybody listening, is that cooking is not hard. The cooking process is fire, a pan, and food. Yeah. The other parts, what you put in it, creating your own recipes. I can remember taking on an intern, and I said, okay, I need you to prep the Trinity. I call it the Holy Trinity. It's onions, green peppers, and celery. That's the Trinity. If you're working the line, and if you're interested in getting into food, and you want to go into a restaurant with no professional training or anything like that, when the guy in there says, okay, I want you to prep me up the Holy Trinity, he's talking about onions, green peppers, celery. Or if he says mirepoix, then it's carrots, celery, and onions. But what you have to remember is this, because I've had to tell a few interns this: you are feeding people, not animals. So when I say prep, and I'm saying we're making the dish here in the restaurant, that means you want to make it bite-sized. Because one guy had to, I said, who are we feeding here? Horses or cows? Yeah, think of the spoon, you know, logic. This is what I'm talking. In cooking, logic has a great deal to do with how things taste. If you use logic, um, and you say, okay, I'm going to make this here. Well, if you're not very good at cooking, then I would suggest you prep out everything first. Use that mise en place as an example. Create it all so when you do it, because I can remember when I first started cooking, I used to try to cook, watch TV, watch the game and stuff, and then all of a sudden, because they'll say, well, put this in there. After 2 minutes, add the next thing. Well, they mean after 2 minutes because down the road, if this is overcooked, then you lose the flavor, or it's overcooked and you have no flavor. So I would tell people, say, think of balance, think of preparation in cooking because it's not difficult. Prepping food is difficult, getting it to the right size because then it cooks evenly, and that's one of the. I think that's the biggest thing that I've tasted when people have said, "Oh, Gene, taste this for me," and or I'll give them a menu and they try it and they say, "Oh, I tried it, it didn't come out right," and then I'll go taste it. I say, "Well, if you make things uniform, they cook right and they don't have to cook as long." I'm one of these people where the least you have to do to a product, the better off it is. Yeah, and that's kind of like my mantra for cooking. The I take things and I say this is going to be an earthy meal, even if no matter what it is, it's going to be earthy because I'm going to try to do the least amount I can to that food, and then you all of a sudden you're starting to taste the natural flavors. You're getting the vitamins, you're getting all the nutrients you should get. But more importantly, people eat with their eyes. That's I've explained. I've tried to tell people that where I've done some restaurant consulting. I say one of the most important things is people eat with their eyes. Now, people will take. This is something I've learned in the restaurant industry. People will take bad food and good service, but they won't take good food and bad service. So your combination, you have to figure out how to service people good and make it look good, and that's 60% of the process in getting good food to the table. Is saying how would I like that to look. You ever see something, or you go to a restaurant, you go down the buffet line, you say, oh, what's that? Right away, I'm lost because if I can't figure it out, my eyes are telling me, what is that we're eating? And if you can't tell what it's eating, then what have they done to that so that you don't know what it is? So you see, if you work backwards, you can see how basic planning, understanding where food comes from, what's being done to it is in your favor. And so again, cooking, like I say, cooking is very, very easy. I would advise people not to be afraid of it. And the and I'll send this out to my sister who I've told this for life. You don't have to start with the pan turned up to the highest. And the hot pan, cold oil, that's another thing you can remember. If you take a pan, turn it under, and by getting that pan hot, you can put a pan on the eye and you can turn it up to the highest, and it's going to burn, but it's going to be too hot. But if you put it medium and let it grow hot, and then when you put oil in that pan, whatever you put in behind it will not stick because it's a hot pan with cold oil. That's another culinary thing that they teach you in school. So. Is my time up here?
You have 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay, I have 7 minutes. If anyone has any more questions, and one thing I can say, if you're looking for recipes, and if you have a question about cooking things, please come to my blog and be particular. One of the things that I think that has made people like my food is because I ask so many questions. Again, I mentioned Chef Rudy Carson. I bombarded him with questions, but the questions I was asking was how to make things better. And anybody can take an intelligent question. Now, intelligent. You remember that movie Wall Street where the guy comes in and says, "Hi, I'm so and so. I'm Bud Fox. Hi, I'm so and so. He said, I hope you're intelligent." That, that's that's a great learning tool. When you have a question and you come to somebody to ask that question, try to put it into perspective for yourself so that you ask an intelligent question and you can get an intelligent answer, and the people will answer you more truthfully. It's being very blunt today. It's that's one of the things that I think we need to pull back on in our society because people are really blunt. But when it comes to cooking, ask what you want to know. Don't make it broad. Say, okay, why did this stick, or what should I have done here, or uh, am I sautéing? If I'm sautéing, then how much oil do I need? A lot of people They look at things and I say, well, you're sauteing, but that you have enough to deep fry there. You know, when it says saute means little. Deep fry means big. Okay, this is what I'm saying about intelligent questions. Braising, braising is halfway. When you do stews, it's covered. So if you look at things and you actually read that menu and see what the people are asking, and if you don't understand a word, pull out the dictionary. I have every place I go, and today come in here, I bought my big book. This is the book I learned how to cook with, and it's old, it's beat up. You see, it still has my name in here when I was just starting out. But I go back to this book because when people say, "Oh, you're an executive chef," they assume that you know everything, and that's not right. You don't know everything because you're constantly growing. New methods come out. I've run into so many new methods that I've learned where I said, "Okay, well, I hope I didn't hurt anybody when I did it that way before." You know, so now I know a better way of doing it. You try to stay up on the new methods in cooking. On the one of the books that I've gotten online is when they talk about exotic vegetables, exotic fruits that come from other countries. This is We are starting to incorporate it. Food in America is just becoming international, whereas in Europe it's been international for years. But it's just starting to become international here in America, and it would do us well to go out and to get a dictionary and to start looking at some of those international menus and looking at some of those international websites about how you prepare this food and go back to its origin, because that's one of the things that I've learned. If you look at a food, when I run into a food that I've never cooked, first thing I do is I try to find out the origin, and I see who expounded this food and see how they made it, instead of looking at the famous chef doing it now. Say, okay, well, let me go back, because what he's doing is just this is a take on something that he's seen. So I try to go back and say, okay, well, what was the origin of this? Um, how was this grown originally? What was the purpose of it? Yeah, and from there, then I take that and I move on. So I hope I gave out some information here. I say I got one more. What are some examples of slow foods and fast foods? Okay, a fast food. Most fruits are fast foods, and by fast foods I mean light foods. Something that you consume. I don't want to just say fruits. Okay, here's something that I pride myself on. I'm going to take this question here so that I'm not just answering it off of my head. When I return home, I will go to my blog and I will give you a list so that it's just not one or two fast foods, but I will find a list for you of fast foods and slow foods, and also direct you to a chart that shows you what food order you should be eating. Okay, I would do that, Rachel. Okay, I would like to thank everybody for your questions, for listening, for those out there listening. And again, like I said, come to Connect 60 Plus, click on champions, myself, and there's 4 other champions. We're looking for other champions. And if you have any questions, you can contact Rachel Brito or Amy St. Peter. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. We will see you all next month. Please log in to connect60plus.com to check out our future upcoming webinars. We have them scheduled through September right now. Also, if you know of anyone who would like to participate, please put them in contact with us. We would love to work with them. And so for now, have a happy Friday and a great weekend. Thank you very much.